All right, if you could take your seats, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you all for being here. Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Scott Schindler, and I'm honored to serve as the president of the San Diego County Bar Foundation this year. On behalf of the foundation, it is my privilege to welcome you as we recognize and induct this exceptional class of honorees into the Distinguished Lawyers Memorial. I'll admit, tonight holds a special meaning for me personally. One of our honorees, Judge Gill, is someone I met back in 2002 when I was 16 for my Eagle Scout Court of Honor. I had no idea that over 2 decades later, I would have the distinct privilege of welcoming him into the Distinguished Lawyer Memorial. And Judge Irving's son helped me leave the legal profession and join the commercial real estate world. So there's a lot of full circle moments here, and I won't soon forget them. The legal profession serves as a cornerstone of justice, and the Bar Foundation plays a vital role in supporting our local legal community and expanding access to essential legal services to those in need. Tonight, we honor 5 extraordinary individuals whose careers reflect excellence, integrity, and deep commitment to equal access to justice, the heart of our mission at the foundation. Throughout the evening, you will hear about the lasting contributions of our inductees. While each has served the San Diego community in unique ways, they are united by their dedication to justice and the highest ideals of the legal profession. Many of you have already honored your colleagues, mentors, and friends through your support of the Bar Foundation in tribute to this year's inductees, and for that, we are deeply grateful. Your generosity, along with the support received tonight, ensures that critical legal services reach foster youth, individuals with disabilities, seniors, immigrants, survivors of domestic violence, and others in need in our local community. Because of your support, the Bar Foundation has distributed more than $5 million to over 50 local organizations, advancing access to justice all across San Diego County. Yeah, that deserves a round of applause. Did my microphone die? I'm loud, but hopefully I don't feel. Now I invite you to reflect on our mission at the foundation as we share a brief video.
We're helping immigrants who are seeking asylum. We're helping veterans who are seeking to get their benefits. And we're helping the elderly who are dealing with financial abuse.
San Diego County Bar Foundation is the charitable arm of the San Diego County Bar Association. And it involves a group of attorneys and business people who come together to identify pro bono legal providers who help the underserved with their legal problems. The foundation is scouring San Diego for worthy organizations to provide money to.
I'm a member of the foundation because we vet these organizations that we donate to. We make sure that they are doing good, effective work in the community and they are serving the portions of the population that wouldn't otherwise have an access to an attorney or to legal advice.
The San Diego County Bar Foundation is really critical to supporting our legal services. Legal aid and legal services, even for seniors, is not a favorite. That's where the San Diego County Bar Foundation comes in.
Well, the foundation has done many, many things in support of our work. At the heart of what we do is work to ensure that there is access to justice for asylum seekers, unaccompanied children, and victims of serious crime, so as to ensure that they have protection. To know that the San Diego County Bar is standing with us to ensure that persons get access, quality access to our justice system.
The key thing that you have to consider is that when you make a donation to foundation, you are outsourcing all the due diligence and hard work that it takes to identify those startup pro bono legal providers that otherwise wouldn't get that seed money to really start doing good in the community.
Everyone has a right to have an opportunity to be heard, and the San Diego County Bar Foundation ensures that that happens, that is, in San Diego County, a reality.
I think everybody should have access to legal aid. If they're dealing with an issue, then they should have the right to an attorney who knows how the system works and is able to articulate their case in a way that would best help them.
How important is it for that kind of work to be done?
It's essential, because if we're not doing it, nobody else is going to do it. You cannot expect your average person to navigate the legal system without the expert advice of a competent attorney.
If you are interested in donating on behalf of one of the 2026 inductees, there are a few easy ways to do so. You can visit our website, which can easily be accessed by scanning the QR code on the screen or on the back of your name badge, or you can Venmo us. I know there's a lot of people out here that use Venmo, I can tell, at SDCBF. Or complete the donation form, which can be found at the registration table with my esteemed colleagues and board members over there, and submit it to one of our staff members or board members here this evening. All donations are welcome and will support our ongoing efforts to provide access to justice for those less fortunate in our community. On behalf of the board of directors and over 50 organizations we have been fortunate enough to fund, thank you. All right, before we proceed with the inductions, we would appreciate it if everyone could stay for the entire program, as we recognize all of our colleagues being here tonight. I would also ask that families and speakers remain after the program for a group photo. In an effort to keep our program timely, remarks this evening will be limited to pre-selected speakers designated by each honoree's family. We warmly encourage you to share additional stories and memories with one another following the formal presentation. At this time, I would like to thank the distinguished speakers who will present each of our honorees tonight. Jake Benzian for Peter H. Benzian. The Honorable, gotta check the batteries next time. The Honorable Maureen Hallahan for the Honorable David M. Gill. I'll just yell. Douglas Butts for the Honorable J. Lawrence Irving. The Honorable Cynthia A. Bechant for Michael E. Lassiter. And Brianna Pendergrass for Lynn Lazary. Thank you. Our first inductee tonight is Peter H. Benzian, so it's my pleasure to introduce Jake Benzian, who I just learned tonight. We played lacrosse against each other in 2007, who will say a few words about his father, Peter.
Thanks, Scott. He won. Oh, the competitive matches always, Scott, no doubt. This is a bit dangerous, I guess, to start this way, but there's so many people out here in the crowd that I've already seen that are associates and colleagues of my dad, and just wanted to say a special thank you to Judge Taylor, to my brother, Whitney Benzian, for organizing here, Ken Fitzgerald, Steve Wilson, Bruce Shepard, Dave Boatwright, John Demarest. Again, somebody's going to be mad at me at the end of this, but it's great to see everyone. Thank you guys for all turning out. Also wanted to say another special thanks to the San Diego County Bar Foundation for selecting him for this honor. When I think of my dad, one of my fondest memories is when the two of us were batching it. I think Mom was off at Wrights Lake on one of her famous trips. And we put on a movie on TMC. It was a classic movie called Anatomy of a Murder. And in it, Jimmy Stewart plays a small town Michigan lawyer who's going head to head with an individual named Claude Dancer, who's a sharp, high-powered attorney general from the state capitol with greater resources and bigger backing. Dad's love of the movie and Jimmy Stewart's Paul Beegler character was contagious. His grin went ear to ear as Beegler addresses the jury in the film and says, "I'm just a humble country lawyer trying to do the best I can against this brilliant prosecutor from the big city of Lansing." Now, the parallels between my dad and Beegler are uncanny. Both present themselves with an aw shucks Midwestern persona, when in reality, they couldn't be further from the truth. Underneath that humble persona is a razor-sharp, ultra-competitive legal mind that is thinking of all the angles. I'm grateful Dad used that power for good and always dedicated himself to the community. Thank you again for honoring my dad, Peter. He really was a great guy.
Peter Benzian as your father meant that no matter what, you had someone in your corner. I think being one of four, all four of us would say that our dad was our rock for all things in our life, and I know my mom felt the same as well.
He was a wonderful person to work with. He was very forthright and honest. He was friendly, very competent lawyer. He was really a good guy, and I was very pleased to see him be part of the San Diego legal community.
This is movie star, handsome man, but he was incredibly modest. And I looked at him and I said, there's nothing here not to like, and I still feel that way some 50 odd years later.
He's charming, he's charismatic, he's caring, dedicated, and I think one of the attributes that I find most inspiring was his dedication to public service.
Work that he did that meant a ton to him was his work with Pediatric AIDS Foundation. He got involved with the foundation due to just a really close family friend and friend of my mom, Elizabeth Laser, and that was really lifelong work.
That charity fulfilled its mission. It pretty much cured mother-to-child AIDS transmission.
I was fortunate enough to be involved in the formation of the Association of Business Trial Lawyers, which started when a group of LA lawyers came down and took some of us to dinner and suggested we form a local chapter. Peter's name came up at the very first meeting as being someone we really wanted to involve, and wound up being the second president of the ABTL here in San Diego.
At Latham, he was at some point, in addition to working his way up through the ranks, establishing the department, he was the chair of the litigation department, and he handled complex, high-profile litigation matters, high-stakes types of cases.
Well, it came to pass that he and I were adversaries, representing two of the largest public utilities in California who were going at it. Even though we were representing opposite sides, he continued, as he had throughout his career, being a perfect gentleman, always honoring his word.
Peter and the Lunch Bunch, and the people watching will know who that is.
Yes, I was a member for a while.
This group of such wonderful people, wonderful mentors who were really instrumental in my career to show young attorneys what it's like and what it means to practice with integrity and professionalism.
Since I wasn't working for him, his mentorship of me was unwitting. He didn't know that I was trying to model myself after the way that he carried himself. Years later, I was able to tell him just how much he had meant to me.
When Peter retired from Burford, I think he knew he was dying. He just behaved with the characteristic grace that we were all accustomed to. He was calm and collected to the very end, and we will miss him very much.
Especially after he passed, realizing his wake of influence on just so many others hit us all really hard.
And it's just nice to have the recollection walking down the hallway in the courthouse to see his picture up there and remember what a fine friend and law partner he was to all of us.
Thank you, Jake, and thank you to the Benzian family. Our next inductee this evening is the Honorable David M. Gill, and I welcome the Honorable Maureen Hallahan to speak in remembrance of her colleague, Judge Gill.
Thank you, and good evening to all of you. Thank you all for being here tonight to celebrate the greats of our legal profession. I had the good fortune of knowing each and every one of them, and I know what a loss it is, and I also know how grateful we all are that they were in our lives and in our profession and in San Diego. So thanks again to all of you. I have the privilege tonight of saying a few words about Judge David Gill, a man whose life, I believe, was defined by three enduring loves: his love of the law, his love of family and friends, and his deep commitment to and love of giving back to the community. First, Judge Gill loved the law. Now, Jake set the high bar. My speech is going to be a little bit longer than his, so I'm warning you right now. He was a graduate of Stanford University and Stanford Law School. He settled in San Diego and then would become have an extraordinary legal and judicial career in San Diego, completely dedicated to public service. He served as a deputy district attorney and in the Army Reserve JAG Corps. He was appointed to the municipal court in 1974 and elected to the Superior Court in 1979. Over the next 50 years, he became the longest serving judge in San Diego County history, officially retiring from the court on December 13th, 2024, his 90th birthday. What made Judge Gill truly extraordinary was not simply his longevity or intellect. It was the reverence he had for the judicial system and the people that are in it. During his career, Judge Gill handled thousands of criminal cases and took on the toughest and most difficult matters in our courthouse, and I think you'll hear some of that in the video. These cases demanded patience, wisdom, courage, strength, and absolute fairness. He approached each case, no matter how big or no matter how small, with preparation, dignity, and respect for everyone in the courtroom. No part of the justice system meant more to him than the jury system. Judge Gill started the jury greeting tradition in San Diego County. For decades, Judge Gill personally gave the jury greeting each morning, greeting the jurors with warmth and enthusiasm and explaining the importance of their service. He believed deeply that ordinary citizens bringing their life experiences and common sense to the courtroom was essential to justice. Judge Gill once said, "I have great faith in the jury. Together they have 500 to 600 years of common sense and life experience." Those words perfectly captured who he was: a judge who trusted people, a judge who respected civic duty, and believed that justice worked best when guided not only by the law, but by wisdom, fairness, and humanity. Second, Judge Gill loved his family and friends. Those who knew him knew that behind the distinguished judge was a warm, loyal, and deeply caring man. He cherished his friendships, he valued loyalty, and made people feel important. He mentored generations of lawyers and judges, not only because he had to, but because he genuinely cared about people and wanted others to succeed. At the center of his life was his beloved Marcia, his partner, his wife, his greatest supporter, and the steady foundation behind his extraordinary life of service. Thank you, Marcia. Their relationship reflected the same kindness, devotion, and grace that Judge Gill showed to everyone around him. Finally, Judge Gill believed deeply in giving back to the community. His service did not end when he left the courthouse. He gave generously of his time and leadership to organizations throughout San Diego: the Salvation Army, the Armed Services, YMCA, the Boy Scouts of America, San Diego County Law Library, the National Institute of Trial Advocacy, and so many others. Judge Gill believed that public service was not a title, it was a responsibility, whether he was mentoring young lawyers, supporting charitable organizations, or encouraging civic engagement. Judge Gill always sought ways to lift others up and strengthen the community. Judge Gill leaves behind an extraordinary legacy. Not only is he a legendary judge, but a devoted husband, trusted friend, mentor, and community leader. He showed us that a meaningful life is built not only through professional accomplishments, but through kindness, generosity, humility, and service to others. San Diego is better because Judge Gill lived and served here, and we are all better because we knew him. Now we turn to the Distinguished Lawyer Memorial Video, and I want to thank the San Diego County Bar Foundation and the speakers, Judge Michael Smith, Attorney Bob Brewer, and John and Carol McAfee. Thank you all.
I know that he was appointed by Ronald Reagan to be a judge. That part to me was quite significant. But he'd been a lawyer for many years before he became a judge.
He was very proud of his military service, and he enlisted in 1955 as an enlisted man in the reserves, and then he was commissioned after he received his law degree. He retired as a full colonel from the Army Reserves, and I know he was very proud of that.
One fond memory I have, Uncle David was able to arrange for me to take a tour of Naval Special Warfare out in Coronado, California. And from there, I was able to meet with the Command Master Chief. I was able to meet with the commanding officer, and it really just excited me to join the Navy. And I served for almost 24 years. And really I owe it to, my Uncle David for kind of setting that all up and doing something with my life.
He took his job seriously, didn't take himself too seriously. He had a great sense of humor. He just never quit trying to get better, to do good, on and off the bench. I mean, his community involvement is well known.
If I were to designate a passion, it would be to volunteer, because I think David was on almost every board of every foundation and organization there in the Valley or in the San Diego community.
The amount of time that he spent in professional organizations and associations, he always took time to enjoy life as well.
He delighted in watching, my kids and my nephews and nieces. He enjoyed family, and he enjoyed the get-togethers.
The trial that everyone remembers him for is the Dale Akiki case, which was 217 trial days.
It was a big deal. It was the longest criminal trial in San Diego's history at the time.
But he handled it so well and received many accolades on how he handled such a high-profile case.
He said that he really tries hard to keep in mind the human element. He said, if you look at them as individuals with their own stories and own histories and whatnot, it makes the job more interesting, more enjoyable. He says it also makes you a better judge. And so I've always tried at least to keep that in mind. I don't think anybody can do it like Judge Gill did for 50 years.
After having 50 years on the bench, I think it speaks very loudly for his dedication and his obvious hard work and his appreciation by those people that he worked with.
He's just a servant leader, living his life and committing it to the service of others.
He'll never be forgotten because he was the first recipient of the Pillar of the Legal Community Award, which he received in 2022. And upon his retirement, that award is now known as the Judge David M. Gill Pillar of the Legal Community Award.
It happens that I saw him on the day he died, early that morning at his home. And we looked up, and Marcia and I were there, and we looked up, and you could see from where he was sitting, his chambers in the courthouse. You look right up there, and it's right in the line of sight. And then we heard a few hours later it passed. And I just can't overstate how much I miss having him here. He was such an inspiration to all of us.
Thank you, Judge Hallahan, and thank you to the Yale family. The Honorable J. Lawrence Irving is our next inductee, and he will be presented by his former law partner and close friend, Douglas Butts.
Good evening, everybody. I'm glad you were here and managed your way up that spiral parking structure. So thank you for coming here tonight. It's my pleasure to say a few words about Judge Irving, with whom I shared a 50-year relationship as his employee, law partner, and very close friend. I joined his firm a long time ago in the fall of 1974 as a brand new lawyer. Unknown to me at the time, I was given the opportunity of a lifetime, the opportunity to train under the watchful eye of one of the city's finest trial lawyers. It was a total immersion program on how to be an ethical and highly effective lawyer. Judge Irving trusted me with his most important clients and let me run with complex and high-value cases. He gave me a long leash, but he allowed me to make mistakes while teaching me ethical behavior. He was truly a sensational role model. I learned so much from him. He was appointed to the federal bench in 1982 by President Reagan. He presided over numerous high-profile cases, including several drug smuggling cases where his life was threatened by the drug cartels. And he was assigned a marshal by the name of Ron, who I got to know pretty frequently because the three of us would have lunch together sometime. Irving resigned his lifetime appointment at the end of 1990 because of his staunch opposition to the strict sentencing guidelines passed by Congress in 1987. He made no secret of his displeasure with the guidelines. He lamented the loss of judicial discretion in fashioning just and fair sentences. His principled decision to step away from the bench drew national media attention. Other federal judges followed his lead. Judge Irving was the consummate trial lawyer's judge. He loved good lawyers, and he let good lawyers alone, giving them the freedom to try their cases without interference or overcrowding by the court. He created courtroom environments that brought out the very best in trial lawyers. After resigning from the federal bench at the end of 1990, Judge Irving rejoined my firm as an of counsel and embarked upon a new career in mediation. He soon developed a sterling reputation as a nationally known mediator who could settle cases that other lawyers and mediators could not. He mediated huge class action cases having national importance and far-reaching consequences. Over his 20-year career as a mediator, he settled some of the biggest class action cases in the land, including the Enron and Lincoln Savings and Loan cases. Judge Irving died peacefully in his Coronado home at the age of 89. I was with him 2 days before he died to say goodbye. I knew the man really well. He was secure in who he was and what he had achieved in life. He was kind and respectful to people of all ethics, races, ethnicities, and backgrounds. He was one of the finest men I ever knew. A few of his colleagues have paid tribute to him in the videos you're about to enjoy.
despite being this legal titan, he was incredibly humble, gracious with everybody, an understated human being, circumspect.
Regardless whether you were a practicing lawyer or whether you were a judge, everybody wanted somehow to rise to the level of conduct that Judge Irving seemed to manifest.
He was patient, and by that I mean he could have heard an argument 100 times before, but he would be patient to listen to it again by a new lawyer or by somebody that hadn't given the argument before and knew that he'd already ruled on that. He was a perfect gentleman with defendants, litigants, lawyers, jurors.
The first case I appeared in front of him on was a bankruptcy-related case in San Diego, but there was something about the order that we had drafted that he wanted changed. And Judge Irving said to me that he wanted me to bring it to his home that evening and he would sign it. So I went to their home in Point Loma to have Judge Irving sign this order. Still, very intimidated by this incredible federal judge. He and his wife were there and they couldn't have been more gracious inviting me into their home.
Judge Irving had this luck of the draw in that he drew a number of cases who had people who were famous or infamous in the 1980s. So he was the judge who presided over the trial and then ultimately as well a guilty plea for Richard Silverman. He had a case that involved DeLorean. He had a case that involved Wayne Newton.
He resigned from the bench after only 9 or 10 years because he couldn't abide the sentencing guidelines, which forced him to impose mandatory sentences and not exercise his own judgment, his own sense of compassion and his own sense of empathy.
His respect within the bench across the country just went sky high. And within a matter of months, really, he was being called upon by federal judges all over the United States.
He had a book done about him. My husband and I were actually interviewed for the book. And I did read it, and I loved reading, the interviews from the other, all the other people from different walks of life.
It's a biography which I had the good fortune of reading, and very interesting. It brought back a lot of memories for me personally. But it showed the side of him that probably was unknown to most members of the local legal community. His family, particularly the relationship he had with his wife.
He was absolutely devoted to his wife. Anybody who knew him knew that she came first in his life. There was no way I could pay him back for everything he'd done for me. But what it inspired me to do was to look for people that I thought were worthy coming up through the ranks and to do for those folks what Judge Irving did for me.
He showed the community what it meant to treat people with respect and be respected and to stand up for your principles.
I am so grateful to the county bar that they chose to honor Judge Irving. He was not a person that angled for awards, and I think this is a very fitting way to honor somebody who was enormously talented, devoted to our legal community, and I think it should mean the world to his family and his friends.
Thank you, Doug. Our fourth inductee is Michael E. Lassiter, who will be presented by the Honorable Cynthia A. Shant.
Good evening. So 50 years as a prosecutor. Criminal prosecutor as an AUSA, deputy AG, and cross-designated as a deputy DA. I met Mike when I came to the U.S. Attorney's Office in the late 1980s, and even then he was sort of an elder statesman in the office, dispensing advice and jokes to anyone who needed it. There were numerous letters written in support of his candidacy, and I thought that when I would look through them in putting these remarks together, and I saw four themes that came out of that. First of all, his judgment. Second, his mentorship. Third, his humor and generosity, and if you see a theme throughout the night, the fourth was he was very much of a family man. First, his judgment. He was never flustered. He was never angry. He could be counted on to give good counsel in any circumstances. He knew when to stand tall and fight for the government, and when maybe to back away or to soften the blows of the government. Judge Sabra said, "When I think of Mike, I am reminded of Micah chapter 6, verse 8. He was one to pursue justice, seek mercy, and walk humbly." Second, his mentorship. In his decades of public service, his greatest joy seemed to be mentoring younger attorneys, and his impact in this area is beyond measure. Everyone mentioned that he never turned anyone away who had a request for advice. Judge Hayes said his thoughtful guidance focused not just on securing convictions, but on the importance of maintaining work-life balance and treating everyone in the legal system with respect and dignity. He trained a whole slew of lawyers in the U.S. Attorney's Office with his story about the Texas Rangers. A massive riot occurred in a Texas border town. The townspeople called in the Texas Rangers and waited nervously for an army of lawmen to come to the station. When the train pulled in, one ranger stepped off. The terrified townsfolk asked where everyone else was, and the ranger replied, "Hell, ain't I enough? There's only one riot, isn't there?" Mike, as a supervisor, imposed the one riot, one ranger rule. No second chairs, you're the ranger, you try the case. And as a result, attorneys got trial experience quickly. Third, his humor and generosity. He had a sharp wit, sometimes a gruff exterior, but he had a heart of gold. He was kind and generous, sometimes to people he barely knew. Judge Curiel said he was always quick on the uptake and could leave you in stitches with his colorful stories and observations. And Judge Pettit said he had a warmth that made him a joy to be around. He never met a person he didn't like, and he never took himself too seriously. This combination of humility, kindness, and humor created an environment where those around him could learn, grow, and thrive. He was truly someone who would give you the shirt off his back if he felt you needed it. Finally, he was a family man. He met his wife, Judge Melinda Lassiter, in law school, where she was only one of a handful of women in the law school class, and he never lost the pride he had in all of her accomplishments. Together, they raised two wonderful daughters, Ashley and Elise, and a passel of grandchildren, some of whom are here today. He even has two friends that I just met from high school who came down from the Bay Area to be here. And that's sort of a tribute to who Mike is as far as his friendship and family. For years, he and his wife hosted a record-breaking Easter egg hunt for children of his friends, neighbors, and work colleagues. Hundreds of children would find eggs, trade them in for prizes that the Lassiters bought by the case. The party included pony rides and swimming in the pool. I took my children, and I can attest that it was a child's dream come true and a testament to Mike's sense of joy and generosity in giving to others. He will be missed, but he is remembered, and I am so pleased that he's being inducted into the Distinguished Lawyers Memorial today. Thank you.
Mike had many qualities, but I think that it's best to understand that a man or a woman doesn't walk into a prosecution office with all of the talents and qualities that are required to carry out that office appropriately and well, he or she has to bring with him a lifetime learned of persistence and dedication, and integrity and competence. And Mike brought all of those qualities with him when he started in the Attorney General's office. And of course, he maintained them throughout his 5 decades as a prosecutor.
There's so many fond memories I've had with Mike. I mean, there's just been many days when, a case is heavy or a situation is heavy in the office. He was someone you could always go to and just have a moment to decompress and to get a hug and just to feel that there's someone who's listening.
I first met Mike in 2010 when I joined the U.S. Attorney's Office, but I knew of Mike because he and my dad had actually been prosecutors together at the Attorney General's office in the 1970s. And I had spent a lot of time in law school interning at local agencies and had not been in federal court, and I was nervous. I remember my dad told me, whether it's on your first day or second, go find Mike Lassiter. Mike is a friend, Mike is family. He's someone that you can turn to if you need advice or guidance, and that turned out to be 100% correct.
Mike was easily the best supervisor I ever had. He was amazing. He was infinitely patient. His door was always open. Whenever I had any question regarding a case, he was never too busy. And it's not just me. There were many other individuals that were beneficiaries of his mentorship and his tutelage.
So the Overland Beach tournament was a big passion of Mike Lassiter's. I know that. I was one of those that like to observe because there's certain people in the office that were so passionate about it. And he really got excited every time that came around each year.
He was always excited to be there, always a smile on his face, both as a competitor and then eventually as someone cheering the rest of us on to be a part of that tradition and culture. To help make sure that the office knew itself outside of the office and had something fun to look forward to and to get to know each other in different ways.
He was a big guy. He was a commanding presence in the hallways of his law offices, in the courtrooms, but he was also a big person to his family. He was a sports car enthusiast. He loved life and he lived it big.
Michael was rich in friends and love and people that surrounded him. And that's something that basically lasts a lot longer than silver and gold.
He was probably the only prosecutor that I know of who served continually as a prosecutor for 50 years, unbroken. I don't know of anyone else who's ever done that.
That epitomizes Michael Lassiter to a T, is that he's someone who was always here for the greater good and always wanted to make everyone around him better.
It means that Mike's legacy as not just an attorney, but also as a teacher lives on.
He was someone that you could emulate professionally, but then also personally. And it gave you sort of the space to pursue success in all ways.
I really think that's what the Distinguished Lawyer Memorial is all about. It's those attorneys that really we should be honoring for all their dedicated service to really make all of us better.
Thank you, Judge Prashant. Our fifth and final inductee this evening is Lynn Lazary, who will be presented by Brianna Pendergrass.
Good evening. Years ago, I was one of a very lucky few to be accepted as a fellow to the firm Sandler, Lasry, Lobby, Buyer, and Valdez, which carried with it a huge benefit of being mentored by the legendary Lynn Lasry. Lynn Lasry was quite simply everything I ever wanted to be, everything I still hope to be. An amazing, incredibly skilled and respected trial attorney, a devoted mother, an amazing mentor, friend, partner, a community powerhouse, and an undying positive force for advancing women in the law and for diversity in general. And I would be here for hours if I was tasked with summarizing Lynn's career highlights and the amazing accolades she collected over her career. And thankfully, I wasn't tasked with that. I want to talk to you about the ineffable qualities about Lynn that could never be distilled down to a CV or to the program that you're looking at, but that everyone felt. Anyone who met her knew this about her, even if you couldn't explain it. She had the rare, unique ability to be confident without being arrogant, to be impactful without being overstated, and to be damn powerful without being performative. And this one-of-a-kind cocktail she had of warmth and wisdom and grit and grace and quiet charisma made her freaking magnetic. You know? And anybody who met her could feel it. Sorry. And more often than not, that cocktail made her the smartest person in the room, hands down, although you'd never know it and she'd never admit it. A good friend of hers, Arizona Superior Court Judge Chris Whitten, described her as having the rare combination of brilliance and steadiness that makes people trust the legal system because they trust her. And he was right. I trusted Lynn, my fairy boss mother, as I called her, with quite literally everything from how to gracefully handle obstreperous opposing counsel or more persuasively write a brief to how to navigate family drama or train my dog or how to juggle motherhood and nursing with litigation. She was my touchstone, my gold standard for life, really. And she gave selflessly of her time to me and to others, not just during my years at the firm, but amazingly for years after, when there was literally nothing in it for her. I had to have been a bother. And then now that I mentor a lot of associates now, sometimes we are. But even more amazing than that is that reading these letters in support of Lynn's nomination tonight and hearing from people in her celebration of life, I realized just how common my experience with Lynn was. Somehow this amazing woman who had such an overflowing life of amazing advocacy and trial work, managing a law firm, motherhood, grandparenthood, and her amazing grandkids are here tonight. Volunteering, travel, teaching. On top of all of that, she made everybody, especially women lawyers, feel important and heard and freaking capable. She was inspiring beyond belief. And I know over the course of 40 plus years, she and her husband, Alan, cultivated this culture of belonging and support for so many lawyers in our community, not just in San Diego, but internationally, truly, with all the teaching that they did over their travels. I know that my career, and I'm clearly much less distinguished than all the speakers that have come up here tonight, but my career and the person that I strive to be is so heavily influenced by Lynn and by Alan, and I know I see people in this crowd tonight that feel the same way, whether they're here tonight or in spirit. And it's just incredible. The last question that Lynn asked me before she died was whether I had seen the new Wicked movie. And I hadn't at the time. I had actually hoped that we could go see it together because the main song in that musical had always reminded me of Lynn, because no matter who you were, anyone who met Lynn, whether you were her housekeeper or an annoying mentee that didn't leave her alone for 15 plus years, anyone who met her was changed for the better and for good. And she changed our profession in that way. And she is just so incredibly deserving of tonight's honor. Thank you.
She was my inspiration. She was my hero, my role model. What would Lynn do, is a question I ask myself often. I met Lynn the summer before my freshman year of high school. I joined the same soccer club team as her daughter. She was my Nina at my wedding. We were dear friends.
I met Lynn in 1983. I joined the U.S. Attorney's Office in San Diego. She was already there, so even though I was older, she was senior. Despite me being older, she was infinitely more mature than I was. This was a time when there were maybe 8 women in the criminal division at the U.S. Attorney's Office, but she always held herself with such grace, even under fire. And it's not like she was a shrinking violet either. That woman stood up for what she believed in.
She was a very compassionate person. She was very smart. She had a passion for justice. She had a passion for truth. She loved her kids. She was a full-time, hard-working law firm partner, working law firm partner hours, and yet had time to raise her 2 children who are wonderful young people.
I remember at one point she talked about the freedom that came with basically being a boss, because she got to set her schedule. She got to plan her life and her meetings around her kids. I mean, growing up, I saw her at all the soccer games and tournaments. It was so inspiring for me as a young woman to see that you could do both.
She assisted the Superior Court when judges were under fire. She actually represented my wife and worked with my wife on a few things. She was very well respected in the community. And part of it was that even keel that just always impressed me, and it stayed with her through all the years.
In a fairly segregated neighborhood, a cross was burned on the front lawn of one of the residents. The people who were responsible for it were charged by Lynn as an assistant United States attorney. When the case went to trial, it was a very hotly contested trial.
Lynn, at one point in the trial, tees it up perfectly and says, "Excuse me, Your Honor," and leaves the courtroom. And she, she's a petite woman, and she comes in carrying this huge burnt cross and carries it through the aisle, and thud, and it lands like right in front of the jury.
Defendants were convicted, and it's something that really stuck out in the minds of everyone who was involved in that case and in the system at the time. It was a big deal. Lynn's legacy in the legal community, I think, is she was an important figure during the era in which women were coming to the fore in terms of having a full role in the legal community.
It wasn't just me. I mean, she was so generous with her time to other young women coming up in the profession. I can't think of a person more worthy or deserving of the Distinguished Lawyer Memorial Award.
Having known many of the former honorees, she fits right in. She's the kind of person that we did and should cherish forever.
Thank you, Brianna, and thank you, Alan, to you and your family for all of your contributions to the foundation. Okay. The Distinguished Lawyer Memorial stands as a testament of, no, that's where we're at, legacies and careers of the esteemed lawyers and judges who came before us. For the Bar Foundation, it is not only an opportunity to honor their contributions, but also to continue work that they were dedicated to by raising funds in their name. As you depart this evening, please remember to drop off your donation cards or consider contributing online. If you're unable to give tonight, we encourage you to look for ways to support our mission in the future, which you can do by supporting our events, see you in September, or even designating the Bar Foundation as a Cy Pray recipient. I want to again thank the families, friends, and colleagues of Mr. Benzian, Judge Gill, Judge Irving, Mr. Lassiter, and Ms. Lassery for participating this evening, especially to those of you who spoke on each inductee's behalf. I would also like to give special thanks to Jarrell Belmonte for creating these amazing videos tonight, and I would be remiss if I didn't thank my fellow board members who head up our Distinguished Lawyers Memorial Committee and helped organize the program this evening. Shannon Stein, Deborah Dixon, Alana McMains, Jessica Lees, Christina Morgan, John Whittemore, and Jovia Senior. I thank you all for joining us tonight to honor the 2026 inductees who have served our profession and community well and truly deserve their place in the Distinguished Lawyers Memorial. I look forward to seeing all of you at our annual gala, the evening in La Jolla, the best legal party in San Diego, and I'll put my money on that, on September 19th at the Scripps Seaside Forum. Thank you again for attending tonight and for your continued support of the Bar Foundation. And have a great night. And if you're part of the families who are involved in presentations, please stick around for please enjoy yourself. Thank you.